There's a formula to it. A very simple formula.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Horror Thoughts. I'm Scott, and I'm with my co-host Sean, where we discuss all things horror movies. And today's topic is one of the most subjective and potentially controversial. We're talking best and worst sequels. Sean, I'm so excited to hear your list. I have a feeling I'm more excited to hear your worst sequels list, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's one that I know for sure we have in common. If I was a betting person.
You think so? Oh,
Yeah.
I bet it's my number one. I when I wrote it down, I thought of you. So I bet we do. We'll just dive right on into it. I want to hear I'm going to start with it. I want to hear your worst sequel. How would I word it? Your best to worst of your worst sequels. That's what I want.
Okay. You want to just go through the whole list, or do you want to do one at a time?
We can go one at a time.
Okay. So in my top 5 worst sequels, the least bad. So number 5, I put Hannibal.
Really?
Yes. Silence of the Lambs, I think, is one of the greatest movies ever made. And every attempt to make that a series or a franchise, I think, has been embarrassing. Hannibal is not the worst of the series by far. That would go to Hannibal. Is it Rising or Rises? I never remember.
I've never seen it.
It is my least favorite movie ever made. But that's a prequel, so I decided that it didn't count. So maybe I just put Hannibal because I wanted to complain about that movie. But I think Hannibal's really bad. Some of that is obviously due to Jodie Foster not coming back. As much as I like Julianne Moore, it's not the same dynamic. And it's this weird combination of being really, really boring and yet just unbelievably silly. And it's that weird middle ground where I can't get into it, but it's also the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And it's a really piss poor sequel to a great movie.
So, I liked I mean, granted, it's been years since I've seen it, but when I watched it the first time, it didn't even cross my mind to put on either of my lists. It was kind of just like a middle of the road sequel I really think about. So that was interesting. My worst 5 was kind of tough because there's so many franchises with a lot of not good sequels that made it kind of tough. So I tried to stay away from those as much as I could, but I had to put, I guess, as my number 5, because I couldn't think of another one, to be honest. I had to put Nightmare 5 as my best, the worst 5, even though I'm sure there's plenty of worse sequels out there. I just couldn't think of them. But Nightmare 5, it's just so forgettable for me. Of all the Nightmare series, I hardly remember. There's clips of it that I can remember because I've seen it so little, because I liked that. I know Freddy's Dead is usually where people put their worst, but I understand what they were going for in that one, to be kind of hokey and comedy and kind of ridiculous and Looney Tunes like, where he's pushing the spikes into the road and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of accepted that for what it was. Nightmare 5 had a good start to it. I liked the premise of that there could be this child and then you're seeing the dreams of your child because you are one with the child. And I liked all that things, but then just as far as execution went, especially compared to the other Nightmares, it just started to fall off so quick as that movie got started, and it never picked up. And then they had the ridiculous running up the MC Escher stairs and all that. Yeah. So there's probably worse sequels, but I couldn't think of a number 5 for the list. If I went and sat and watched all the Halloweens and all the Friday, I could probably pick one, but just because I like the Nightmare series so much, seeing 5 is kind of disappointing. So I guess I'm gonna have to make that my best of the worst. Yeah.
That's funny because for me, I think Dream Master's a little worse than Dream Child. There's some stuff in Dream Child that I kind of like, but I agree it doesn't work. It doesn't come together. And so for me, that'd probably be the second worst of that series. So my number 4 is from the Halloween series. My number 4 pick is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Is that the Paul Rudd one? I always get the
yes.
titles confused. Okay.
Yes, that's the Paul Rudd one. I think that movie is just abysmal. Either version, the producer's cut is stupid. It's a bad story premise. I don't like it. I hate the cult. I hate Michael being mind controlled by this other entity that's not interesting. I hate that they raped Jamie Lloyd and had her give birth to Michael's child. That was gross and weird, and I don't get it. And there are no compelling characters. It's really flat, really boring. The theatrical cut is slightly better in that they ramped up the gore and the pace, but it also makes absolutely no sense given all the cuts and reshoots that movie went through. And it is a movie that gives me a massive migraine every time I watch it, which is not often, but every time it physically hurts me. So that had to be on the list.
Yeah, I've only seen that one once, and it was years ago, and I've never seen it again. So I guess that sums up how I feel about that movie. Yeah,
smart decision. That movie blows.
It's a shame because I love Paul Rudd too, and I forget that it always slips my mind that he was in a Halloween movie, and I'm like, I don't watch that one. That's probably why I don't remember it. My number 4, it kind of encompasses a couple movies, but I have to say it because you're talking about physical pain. I wouldn't say it causes me physical pain, but there's so many times I'm looking at the screen going like, that doesn't even make sense. And that's anything after Saw 3, dude. I mean, Saw 3 is a stretch. Like Saw 3 is all right. It's fine. I really love the first one. The second one was kind of cool. I probably like the third one better than the second. Then after that, the plot becomes so convoluted with this guy is covered for that guy, but Jigsaw's dead. So, but this guy, and the whole time I'm watching it, my wife decided one weekend she was going to sit and watch the entire Saw theory. She's got a lisp, a Saw series. And I started to sit back and watch the later ones, and I was pointing out, I don't have them off the top of my head, but I could point out so many plot holes almost immediately. They'd be doing something. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why would they be doing that if that happened in the last movie? That doesn't even make sense. They're just making this an excuse to try and make more things gory and brutal. And I like gore movies and stuff like that, but don't try to justify and church up your gore in your movie by having the most ridiculous path crossing plot line. It's impossible to follow, to the point I haven't seen the new Spiral. I don't know. I haven't even looked at reviews for it. I have no idea because the Saws got to the point where the acting got so bad and the plot line got so ridiculous that they were a one and done. I could never watch them again because they frustrate me.
No Saw movies are on my list. But I think a lot of that's just because I have no attachment to Saw. So if a Saw movie's bad, I'm like, well, that was a Saw movie. No, because I'm just not into that series at all.
Yeah.
So my number 3 is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday.
Yeah.
That movie is something else. Somewhat indescribable. I'll give that director credit for trying something. A for effort and creativity does not mean it works. I almost unwatchable movie. A couple years ago, when my little sister and I first moved into our place together, we did this big Friday the 13th marathon. We just watched all of them because her and my little brother had not seen all of them. They had only seen bits and pieces. We did not make it all the way through Jason Goes to Hell. We got about halfway through and we turned it off. I fast forwarded it to show her the cool ending with Freddy's glove coming out of the ground. Other than that, we couldn't sit through it. Man, I don't even know what to say. The movie, honestly, like, it stupefies me. Like, it's a movie where I can't make heads or tails of it. I think it's really, really bad. Easily the lowest of that series. Because at least Jason X, you can have some fun with the silliness and the over-the-top nature of it. I don't know what Jason Goes to Hell is even going for.
You think Jason takes a boat ride and kind of meanders through Manhattan is better?
That movie is better to watch with other people. That is a weirdly fun party movie. Because you can sort of like in that, ripped tracks kind of good-natured ribbing. I can kind of get into that. That movie sucks and I hate it. But I would rather watch that than Jason Goes to Hell.
Interesting.
And even when Jason Takes Manhattan, like, he punches a dude's head off. That's cool. That's worth it.
Give me a best shot.
He takes that girl's guitar that kind of looks like Vinnie Vincent, just bangs her head with it. That's cool.
Which one is the one, because they all run together, where he's they're on like a roller skating rink almost. And it is a roller skating rink, and he grabs the girl and throws her. He kills her and throws her so lifelessly across the roller rink. Do you remember which one that is?
If we're thinking of the same scene, is it an Asian girl?
Yeah.
That seems like that's Jason Takes Manhattan. That's a scene on the boat. I don't think it's a roller rink, but I think it's some kind of like dance room.
Yeah, dance.
There are like lights going off. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Jason Takes Manhattan.
All right. Now that I've said that, yeah, hell is worse than Manhattan. Because that kill is that stunt actress, oh my God, it's so brutal. She just smacks the ground. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'll agree with you. Hell is worse than Manhattan. My number 3, and this is kind of an odd one because I don't like the series. I don't like any film in this series, but this one in particular was so horrible that I couldn't handle it. And it is Annabelle from the Conjuring series. I saw The Conjuring. I thought it was not a good movie. I don't even know the orders they go in. It's like Conjuring, then 2, then Annabelle, and then there's The Nun, and then there's some other shit.
And there's a release order and then like a story order.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm confused.
I can't keep up with it. So I remember I saw Conjuring, it sucked. Saw Conjuring 2 or whatever, didn't like them. And so Annabelle came out and everyone was saying, dude, you got to see it. It's way different than the other ones. It's going to shake you up and stuff. I'm like, dude, I didn't like the other ones. I'm probably not going to like this one. They're like, no, I'm telling you, watch Annabelle. I hate that movie. There's at least The Conjuring has certain things about it that you're like, I get why people like it. Annabelle, in no sense of a film do I enjoy that movie by any means. I don't understand. It's a fucking doll. Like, it's not like a Chucky doll. Like, at least it's a possessed doll. So I get the story of it, but it's so dumb. Like, there's a part where her kid is sitting in this room and all these books are flying off the shelf and they're like going to hit the kid. And the mom's like trying to get into the room, but she can't. And so her kid is being attacked by a demon and her best defense is to look under the door and watch it happen. I'm like, go axe the door down. What are you doing? And then the Annabelle doll just falls right in front of her face. It's like, this is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. I've never seen another Conjuring series movie since then. I'm sure they're all just terrible. Or that Curse of La Llorona, whatever, is made by the same people.
It was a very bizarre, sneaky one where it's part of that universe, but they didn't tell anybody. Yeah. So it was like a twist.
It was also horrible. So they did good. They didn't have to tell me it was a part of that series for me to know that's who made that movie because it was that bad. It's horrible. But that's my number 3.
I saw the first Conjuring back when it was new, and I didn't really care for it. I didn't hate it, so I never bothered with any of the others.
Yeah, it's not worth it. The biggest scene that everyone was so scared of was that one part where she's like playing hide and seek, and then the hands come out and like clap behind her, and I was like, that's what we got to offer for this movie. That's the scariest thing we got to offer is someone clapped. I hate that movie.
So my number 2 is similar to whatever number your Saw was. where it was a group of sequels in a series. My number 2 is any Hellraiser sequel past 3. Hellraiser very tragically became a direct-to-video series, and the way that the Weinsteins operated it was that they would just acquire shitty horror scripts, slightly have them rewritten to have a Pinhead cameo, or maybe a couple scenes with Pinhead, slap the Hellraiser title on it, and then fart it out onto DVD. And they are all abysmal. It's a waste of everybody's time, and I hate them.
I've never seen any Hellraiser sequels at whatsoever. I see them all the time on like Netflix and Vudu and Tubi and Crackle, whatever off-rate streaming service you want. I've seen them all on there, but I've never watched them.
Yeah. Very bad.
It ties into kind of like you see Children of the Corn, and then you got 900 spinoffs of
also the Weinsteins.
Same people.
Yep.
There you go.
Halloween was going to go the same way because they acquired Halloween before Curse of Michael Myers. So they came in before 6, acquired the rights and took it over. Halloween 6 did so badly that, and was terrible because of them, because they're terrible at their jobs. And Halloween was going to go that direction of just being direct-to-video schlock until Jamie Lee Curtis expressed interest in coming back to Halloween, and then H2O happened. So if it wasn't for that, Halloween would be in the same boat.
Man, that'd be crazy. Could you imagine a whole bunch of Netflix direct-to-streaming Halloweens right now? That'd be nuts.
It would all be that Thorn crap. They would have just kept on with that.
They would have made a show on MTV called The Thorn, and they would have had a whole series.
Isn't it weird that Halloween is the one of these slasher series that hasn't had a show? Freddy had
true.
one. There was that Friday the 13th one. But Halloween, they haven't gone there yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
There's always time. My number 2 is it was so disappointing to follow up such a good movie, and it's Strangers 2 Pray at Night. It was so disappointing. The first Strangers took everything that terrifies me in a movie. Someone being in my house and me not knowing it is utterly terrifying when I see things like that. The fact that they were killing just to kill, terrifying. They have no motive. They just want to. And sometimes that's all the motive you need. That's all it takes is someone just wants to kill. And so they do. And that whole movie, you're stuck in this house and they're playing music and taunting you because they know you're stuck in here. And I saw it in the theaters when I was a kid. It freaked me out. Then the second one came out, and I was it was a couple of years ago. I was older, definitely, and I was so hyped. I said, man, it's going to be another one of these. They're going to go torment people. And they did a thing where the writer and director essentially just took the likeness of the Strangers almost and kind of made their own thing out of it, like an homage to 80s, like a Jason or Michael Myers, to where they, rather than being these people who just kill, they became these superhuman beings that it didn't make sense. Like he would shoot him, and then he would get in a car wreck and he'd have glass through his heart. Then you'd blow the car up and set it on fire. Then he would drive after him and chase him while it's on fire. Then he'd get out of the car and grab him by. It's like, that defeats the entire purpose of the first one that made them human. When you make them superhuman, they have a scene in it where he's chasing down a guy in a pool for 45 seconds to stab him. In a pool. They're just running hip deep in a pool, moving this fast. I got what they're trying to do was to make it an homage to the 80s, but for those characters, it just was not the right move, and I despised that sequel.
Yeah, I never saw that because I just saw no need for a Stranger sequel. We talked about this. Did we just talk about this ourselves, or was this in an episode?
I don't know. I
complained about this movie before.
I've definitely complained about this movie to you. I don't know if it's been an episode.
Okay. So my number 1,
I bet we have the same,
is also yours. Is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4? What is it called?
Next Generation.
Is it Next Generation? Okay. I just completely blanked on the title.
Oh yeah.
Like Jason Goes to Hell, it's a movie that I just look at and go, like, I don't even know what to say sometimes because it's just so astonishingly Just a movie that you watch and you just go, I probably wouldn't be able to make a great movie, but I know not to do that. And that was clearly a bad, and like, it's so terrible.
Oh my God. Is it ever? It's just again, I think we've touched on this before. I don't know if it's been on a show or not, but I remember watching that as an 8-year-old because I had seen like the classics of The Omen, Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw, the original, all these. And I was a kid and I put on Next Generation. I was looking through my DVDs. I found it. I was like, oh, Texas Chainsaw, scary, Leatherface. Put it in. I didn't finish it as a child who's scared by everything. It is awful in all senses of the word awful. There's nothing good. The only thing good is how unhinged Matthew McConaughey goes for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
It's, and like at first it's just like just a really, really bad, just kind of generic slasher thing that, all the staples of that, poor acting, bad pace, it's all just kind of obnoxious. And then they throw the Illuminati at you, and I don't even know what to do with that.
I love the mechanical legs for whatever reason. They're like, we need that in there, of course. Obviously, we need Matthew McConaughey just everywhere he goes. Man, if we get enough listeners and viewership, we need to do a live watch party of that movie.
Oh, God.
We'll put it on. We'll all watch it together.
Only if we do Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park too.
Done. We need to get a limit. If we get enough subscribers and downloads, we will do a watch party and we will watch. Let's see. Let's think of a couple. So Kiss Meets the Phantom, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Next Generation. I'm trying to think of a couple. It could be a monthly thing where if you're a Patreon member, you sit down and you can do a horrible movie watch party. That would be awful. Well, now that we got through the more curious list of worst, diving into best sequels, I have a quick question before I start. Would Freddy vs. Jason count as a sequel or no?
I would count it as a sequel. Perfect.
Okay, so then let me reorder my numbers there. Honorable mention for me, and this, I don't even think this can count as a horror movie, but I'm putting it as my honorable mention.
Okay.
Scary Movie 2. I love that movie. I saw it when I was a kid and I thought it was hilarious, and it's got a nostalgia thing for me because I was coming into all these horror movie elements at one time, and then I got to see this movie where they put them all together and made fun of them. And as a kid, I thought it was the funniest thing. That Exorcist scene where she spins her head around and the priest just goes in and goes, fuck that, and walks out, kills me every time. I'm like, that is the most accurate response to what I would do if I walked into a room and saw a possessed girl spinning her head around. I'd be like, I'm out. Peace. The nostalgia, the humor. I count it as a horror movie because it makes fun of horror movies. So
sure.
Scary Movie 2 is my honorable mention.
Yeah. You want me to go into my number 5, I guess? Because I don't have an honorable mention.
Yeah, you can go into your 5.
Scary movies. I enjoyed those first two. As a kid, I think at a certain point that some of that humor stopped being funny to me.
Yeah.
But some of the jokes that are specifically about the movies are still very funny. A lot of their I Know What You Did Last Summer jokes crack me up. Like, I can't watch that movie and not make those jokes. They really had some good material for that movie.
They really did. The first one where they make fun of Scream the whole time, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
It's definitely a nostalgia thing, not something if they came out, they're like Scary Movie 8 or whatever the hell they're on now, I probably wouldn't go see it. But
at a certain point, it felt like they stopped being about scary movies. Like, I remember one of them was like War of the Worlds.
Yeah, that was the fourth
parody,
one.
and I didn't understand that.
It was all slapsticky after that, more so than.
Well, they got rid of the girl at some point, and she was a lot of what held that together, I thought.
Yeah.
They kind of ditched her at a point. Their Ring jokes were really funny. The Ring is very easy to make fun of.
Yeah.
So the Ring stuff in 3 was very good. And okay, so maybe I'm being nicer to 3 because the Signs jokes are really good. Sorry, this is just a scary movie episode now.
Yeah.
So my number 5, so the least good sequel in my top 5 is a weird one. It's Happy Death Day to You. The reason it's on this list, I loved the first Happy Death Day. It was a big kind of surprise for me because I saw that trailer and went, that's the dumbest movie I've ever seen. It was just, the idea of Groundhog Day as a slasher. For some reason, seeing that in the trailer just didn't work for me at all. I love that movie. I thought that movie was so good. And I didn't need a sequel to it. And the complaints that I saw thrown at the first one was stuff that I thought was kind of dumb to be not nice about it. I saw a lot of people complaining, well, how did she get stuck in a time loop? And I don't get complaining about that stuff because it's a cool premise for a movie.
Yeah.
And so many of these series, they went wrong by trying to explain the thing. You know, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Well, how does Michael have superpowers? Oh, he's a part of a cult.
Yeah.
And there's a tattoo on his wrist and there's a constellation in the sky. You know, and Jason Goes to Hell tried to do that with the weird worm thing or whatever that movie was about. And so the idea of a Happy Death Day 2 explaining that kind of stuff that didn't need to be explained had me really worried, because this movie Happy Death Day 2 does not need to exist in any shape or form. And so it's on my list because I ended up really liking it. It's a movie that I don't think should exist. And yet it still works. Like this character, I think Tree is her name, played by Jessica Roth, is just so compelling and so much fun to watch that it's a really enjoyable thing, even when it's doing things, when the movie is doing things that I just don't like in sequels. And it's just the weirdest thing where I'm really sucked in, even when I'm like, no, I wish you didn't do that.
Yeah, I never saw the first. I've never seen either of them. My wife said I'd love them if I actually put them on and watched them, and I'm sure I would. I've never tried them. That seems interesting. And as far as to touch on what you're talking about, how they want to explain, well, why is she stuck in a time loop? It's like, you don't need answers for everything in a movie all the time. Sometimes it's good to just have a movie. You can be very Hitchcockian about it. Why are there birds everywhere? I don't know, but they're fucking everywhere.
Because it's creepy.
And it's terrifying.
It's the premise of the movie.
Yeah, why are there 100,000 birds? I don't know, but if there was, that would be terrifying. You don't need a reason. It is.
And what would be satisfying? Oh, there's like a global warming.
Yeah, so they all flock to one town. Yeah,
movie's better now. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no, there's almost something more creepy about not knowing why you're in something for certain movies. And with Happy Death Day, like, it's creepy to just, if you know why you're in a time loop, you can justify it. But if you just keep waking up, you're like, what in the fuck? You don't need an explanation. That's what makes it creepy. My number 5 would be, again, it hits more of a nostalgia thing, but Final Destination 3. And I'm sure most people are expecting to hear probably 2, or is 5 the other one that people really like? I really like 5. Yeah, okay. I knew there's one that people really like, but mine is 3, and it is all nostalgia without a doubt. I really enjoyed the first one. And the only thing I can honestly remember from the second one is the aggressive car wreck scene. That one sticks in my mind. I can't forget that one. But in the third one, it's where they go on the roller coaster ride and it falls off. And it's ridiculous that a roller coaster went off the tracks because of a camcorder strap hitting the track. That would not do that at all. You could have a whole camcorder on it. It wouldn't knock a roller coaster off the track. But it's kind of cheesy and hokey at times. But at the time I saw it, I was probably 10 or however old I was when it came out. And you get to see, like, I will not go in a tanning bed to this day. I will not go in a tanning bed, because to watch those girls boil their skin up was just awful. And it was I think what struck me the most about that is being 10, 11, 12, whatever. You're at the point where you're like, there's boobs. Yeah, this is awesome. Naked girl in a horror movie. And then all of a sudden, within 45 seconds, you are just gruesome and horrified because they are charred. Or the guy doing weights and he cut the sword's cut and it cuts the weights he's moving. So when he closes it, it smashes the weights on his head.
Yeah.
Oh, the nostalgia for that movie gets me every time. I really do enjoy that movie. If I watch them objectively, it's probably not the best, but the way I feel when I see it, I'd have to make that my number 4 sequel.
Yeah, I definitely have some nostalgia for that one as well. I remember being on TV quite a bit. I think it's definitely the most memorable of that series. Like I can just recall so many scenes, and maybe it's just because I've seen it more than the others. But I really liked 5. 5 is a lot of fun. There's a highway sequence at the beginning of that movie that I think is the initial death that they avoid that all those movies have. So it's like the big opening set piece that's on like a highway and a school bus is like going off the edge or something.
I need to see 5. I've never seen
It's a really impressive scene, but like you said, that roller coaster's so good. The tanning beds, like all that stuff really sticks in my mind very well. So my number 4 is Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Huh.
I think this is the best of that series. So you've got my best and my worst from that series. And kind of like Happy Death Day, like it's a sequel that really you don't need. Because you just watch that first Friday the 13th and like Mrs. Voorhees dies. And like that's the story and it's over. Let's go home. And in retrospect, I know it feels weird for us because these decisions were made before we were born. And so for us, Jason is synonymous with Friday the 13th. But I imagine it must have felt like a really stupid decision to be like, what if the boy that drowned didn't drown and is now an adult and going to kill people?
Yeah.
And yet it really works. And it's really, I think, iconic. And I think the characters are a lot of fun. I love the character Ginny, played by Amy Steele, who's the final girl of that movie. I think she's great. The kills are really fun. Though I do wish we had seen the uncut versions because I think the MPAA went pretty hard on that movie. But for me, that's like quintessential Friday the 13th.
That's another one of those that we were talking about where you don't have to necessarily explain why the drowned kid in the first one is now killing people.
Sure.
Just accept it for what it is.
You just have to go with it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're just going to get a headache.
Yeah.
So just be like, he lived. Okay.
Yeah, he's not dead, I guess. And the timeline, it's only been 5 years, but now it's been 30 years. But now he's a grown adult. Whatever. It's fine. Let's just watch him kill people.
Because he does drown much earlier
than
the events of the first film. The timeline works.
To a point. You don't have to have a child living in the woods for 20-something years, not killing anybody to become that grown of a man. Yeah, again, here we go.
He wasn't all there.
Here we go trying to justify it, making it logic. You just can't. My number 3 is one that definitely will not be on your list without a doubt. What's that?
I think you skipped one. Are you supposed to be on 4? Because that was my.
Oh, I'm sorry. 4. I apologize. I had my list written out wrong. 4 would be one you definitely don't have on your list. Devil's Rejects. You're not a big zombie guy, so I already knew that one wasn't going to be on yours. But for me, I like his style. I know he's very hit or miss. People either really enjoy his style or you don't. There's not kind of like, you don't casually put on a Rob Zombie movie. You either have the intent to watch it or you don't. It's not just I'm just putting House of a Thousand Corpses on in the background.
I'm just put it on while I vacuum.
Yeah, I'm doing laundry. Let me put on House of a Thousand Corpses. Yeah. Could you imagine how big of a party ruiner that would be for people who don't like horror movies? You're having a house party in the background is just Devil's Rejects going on.
That scene where like the guy, because I know their names, like puts the gun in the woman's down there area. So she's trying to have a party, just put that scene on.
Have a nice cocktail party. How's the dip, Tom? Everyone's just over here eating chips, just staring at the TV, just horrified. What the fuck are you doing? But I like Devil's Rejects because this might tie into more nostalgia thing, and I think it'd be interesting to talk about for an episode, to talk about what you think affects your horror taste. And I think this is one thing that definitely could affect it. Is I remember being a kid and the Devil's Rejects came out, and my dad, like a good parent, when it was on, was like, get out of here. go to your room, do whatever you want.
Hmm.
And so like I would peek around the corner. He'd like, get out of here, go. And then you'd find some excuse to go to the kitchen just so you could see another
Yeah.
10 seconds of it, whatever. And I feel like that gave me that itch that you have as a kid where it's like, I'm not supposed to do this. This is wrong. I want to see it
Mhm.
even more.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened with that movie. So by the time I finally saw it, I was probably, I don't know, 14, 15, something like that. And I did not know it had anything to do with House of Thousand Corpses. I'd never seen that before. So I watched Devil's Rejects and I just love that style. And again, it probably ties more into the fact that I was told at a young age, like, you can't see this. So by the time I saw it, I thought it was awesome because I heard it was so bad. I couldn't sit in there and watch it with my parents. And you get it and you're a teenager and it's got all this profanity and nudity and it's wild. And you're like, every horror movie you've seen to that point has never done that. So I think that's half nostalgia, half I really like Rob Zombie movies. It's hit or miss. You either like him or you don't. And I really think that is kind of his pinnacle quintessential movie. He's got some where you watch them and you can't follow him. House of Thousand Corpses had that style, but it was still kind of gritty and different, kind of trying to figure out where he was. So I think that's like the perfect culmination of his style as Devil's Rejects.
Yeah. I'm sort of the asshole that's in the middle on Rob Zombie because people either like you said, they really like him or they fucking hate him. Like I've met very few people who are just like, oh yeah, I just don't really like his stuff. Like the people that don't like him are not shy about saying it.
No.
They just like, oh, he's the worst thing ever. Like, okay. I think Rejects is okay. I like the escalation from the first film. I prefer the style of Rejects over Corpses, the grittier kind of thing. And I don't know, there's a lot of intense stuff in there that I like. It's just as a whole, it doesn't do much for me. And I think it's because there's not really a survivor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, where you're kind of just stuck. Like every character is just this inhuman, grotesque person, even the one that's supposed to be like your hero. Which is like, that's an interesting inversion. I get what he's doing and I get the appeal of it. It just doesn't do much for me when I'm just watching this horrible police detective do horrible things to horrible cannibal people.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I can get into it. Interestingly, my number 3 is also a Rob Zombie movie. It is the director's cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
You just lost everybody, huh?
Yep. Uh-huh. Dude, I was on Reddit recently and there was a thread about, I don't know why it came up, but somehow that movie came up. And I think I commented that I really liked that movie. Man, I've never been downvoted harder. Like, man, it's like, man, I just wanted to say I like this movie. I love this movie. This movie's wild. It's a weird opposite of what I have with like Jason Goes to Hell and Texas Chainsaw 4, where, I kind of said with those movies that I kind of don't know what to make of them. I kind of have that with this Halloween 2, where I don't know if I get it, but I know I like it. Like it's like it's Zombie's attempt to kind of do like a Kubrick thing. He's clearly looking at Stanley Kubrick and his films and trying to do something more symbolic and more just kind of not so literal. And his previous style was more really gritty and really realistic. So I kind of liked the style change. I just think it's really interesting. I love that that each of the main characters are so fucked up from the previous film, because typically with slasher sequels, what you'll see is if a character comes back, they either die in the first 10 minutes, they're perfectly fine and just have a whole new group of friends to kill. And it's kind of just repeat. And so I like that Laurie, Annie, and Loomis all have severe PTSD from that first film and are all kind of dealing with it in completely different ways, where Laurie has this bipolar disorder, Annie is a shut-in and never leaves the house, Loomis is in complete denial and has kind of become this weird fame whore. And all that character stuff was so interesting. And I think some of the best writing Zombie has done And man, I just love his Michael. I love just how intense and brutal and just terrifying that Michael is.
Yeah, I agree. The way I would say, humanized the characters more. So you're talking with their mental the issues they had following the first one made it more realistic. I really like that they made it a human character, whereas they don't just start the sequel and they get to kill and they're fine, and the third one comes and they're fine. The fourth,
Yeah.
no, you get to see the anguish of what going through a day like that would, how it would affect different people throughout their life.
Yeah.
I do like how I'm a huge fan of Rob Zombie's Halloweens. I love both of them. You're just the only person I know that Halloween 2 is there. But from Rob Zombie, you're like, yes, that's the one. That's the pinnacle.
I think it's the second best of the series behind the original. I think that's what I said that got me downvoted.
Oh, probably. Whatever listeners we have, we just lost 3/4 of them for sure. My number three is one where it doesn't fall into the timeline necessarily of the franchise. And the franchise for me, it's kind of hit or miss. But Paranormal Activity Marked Ones, I loved that movie when I saw it. It's weird because the first one was cool the first time you see it. I thought I liked that style. I was like, oh my God. And it was the first time I was old enough to hear the buzz about a horror movie where people at school or you'd hear it around people like, dude, you got to see this movie. And so that was that was a big moment. So the first one was cool. Second one was all right. Third one, it was better than the second, I thought, involved this cult and everything. And I was in high school. I was going on a date. I was probably 17 or something. And I guess I must have been 18. It was rated R. So I was going to see some movie with a girl. We didn't know what to see. And I was like, Paranormal Activity Marked Ones. It's like, whatever. Like, I don't really give a shit about the movie. I'm on a date. I'm just kind of, whatever. Let's go see a scary movie. And halfway through the movie, she started talking to me. I was like, shut up. I'm into this movie now. Like, this is a good movie. Like, it caught me slipping. I was like, it's going to be some stupid Paranormal Activity movie, some ripoff Marked Ones, whatever. No, that movie's good because you get this, you're in a whole different community than you see in movies. It's this poor Hispanic area, and they're living in this really tight complex. And you got this one lady below them and they're spying on them because they're teenagers just filming and being ridiculous. And some of the scares they got in that movie, they break into the apartment and they just got their cameras everywhere. And it feels so like you were there. I know that's the whole point of found footage, is to feel like you're there, but you don't really feel it in the first Paranormal Activity. Most found footage films, I never really get that sense, but that one, you kind of feel like you're stuck in it. And to watch someone slowly morph from being normal to becoming that demon, and you already know what's going to happen, it's inevitable, and it's showing at first it's cool, you get things get to float and you got this extra strength and all this stuff, and then you realize it's just slowly eating them away. It caught me so off guard. I also went in with the lowest expectations, and it blew me away when I saw it. And after that, all the other Paranormal Activities were horrible, but that one, for whatever reason, I'll watch that one over any of the Paranormal Activities. Whoever made that one did an amazing job, I think.
I've only seen the first one, and just found footage isn't my thing. I've never really liked it, but I don't know. Maybe I like that one.
It's very hit or miss with me, but that one was definitely different.
That is a funny story. Like, you went purposely to see a bad movie for a date, and then, oh, this is really good.
Yeah, she's sitting there like talking, like, hey, can you go get me some? Like, no, I can't. I'm watching the movie now. I'm invested.
So my number 2, which is I mean, I guess it counts as a sequel. I'm obviously counting it, but it's Wes Craven's New Nightmare. To me, this is the best of Elm Street. I think this movie is really brilliant. It's the first one in that series that I saw, so I have a nostalgic factor to it as well. And I don't know, it's a movie that I get so sucked into watching it. Like, it's even hard to put into words sometimes, which is weird because I have a YouTube video about it. But man, I really, really love that movie. I find it really compelling and really intense and interesting.
S- It's New Nightmare's a weird one for me because I came into it super late. So I enjoy it and it's good, but it's never, if I'm putting one on, it's never just a first pick where I'm like, let me pop in this one. But that's what's weird is I love that storyline, but I would sooner put on 3 or 4 or something than I probably, if I'm grabbing one to just watch. But it is a good movie for sure. And my number 2 is definitely not going to be on your list at all because it's not your style of movie. But Hostel Part 2. I love the Hostel movie, the first one, and I love the second one. And it's not necessarily that I like the gore, torture porn, whatever you want to call it, style as per se, but I like how real it could be. And that's what I enjoy. You could easily be backpacking somewhere and have some millionaire pay money to want to kill you. Like that's not that far fetched. Shit like that has happened, will happen. And in the second one, they show the darker the twist of that. In the first one, you're stuck with the characters. You're getting drugged by these women and getting led to this place where people are paying to kill you. And the second one, you're now the killer. You're following the people who have paid the money. They're living normal lives, going to golf, having dinner with their wives and families, all this stuff. They get a text that we got someone for you if you want it. And you got all these psychopath millionaires around the world bidding on the chance to be able to kill somebody however they want. And it just gets so weird because there are people that would fucking do that. I mean, it's very evident people would do that. Look at sex trafficking and everything that happens in real life. People would do those horrific things. And now you see these 2 people going, and one of them is so revved up to do it, and he finally gets there to the moment where he can kill someone, he can't do it. Then you got someone who's so hesitant to do it, he can't kill someone, he gets in there and he fucking feels it, and you see him go crazy. And just the realism of the person is what gets me more than the realism of the gore. Seeing someone be that twisted, those kind of movies fascinate me so much, to just see the darkness that a human being could actually have. And Hostel Part 2, I think, did the best job with that.
Yeah, no, I've never seen any Hostel movie. I think I've maybe seen a scene from one of them where like there's like a naked girl that's like hanging from ropes and they like split her open and someone like bathes in her blood.
That's the second one.
Oh, that's from 2. Okay, that's the only thing I've seen.
Yeah.
From Hostel. Yeah, like you said, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
So my number 1, so my favorite sequel, we talked about it in the last episode, is Scream 2. Shock to no one that knows me. Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies ever. Scream is my favorite movie. I think this is a really good sequel to that. I think it continues the story in a really natural, interesting way. I like this killer. I love kind of just everything about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to ramble too much just because we just talked about it in the last episode.
Yeah, if you want to deep dive on Scream, you can check out our previous episode, or you go to his channel, because I mean that's his shit. If you want to talk Scream, that's the guy to talk to. And my number 1 is going to be the exact same style that we've touched on it ad nauseum probably at this point, and I bet every person listening can guess what my favorite sequel of all time is. Freddy versus Jason. I say it every time. I love that movie. It's 100% nostalgia. That's all it is. That was my first introduction to both of those characters. You get to see them fight it out. No one really wins or loses. It's got a little bit of everything. You got I was 7 or 8 years old. You had monsters, had boobs, had blood, had fire. It was everything a movie needed, and I saw it at the right time. And number 1 without a doubt sequel. I could watch it over any Freddy or Jason movie every time. Freddy versus Jason. It's my number 1.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it before. That movie's in kind of an place
Yeah.
for me, where I like it once the fighting starts. And for me, getting to that point is a slog.
Oh no, I love that movie, and I can watch it objectively and realize how ridiculous it is. But to see it at the time and to remember how I felt as a kid, that movie used to terrify me. And I'll that movie's going to come up a lot, I would imagine, on this podcast, just like Screamable for you, because that's the one that's just stuck with me for forever. But let us know what your lists for best and worst sequels are. I'm very curious, people listening, what y'all think. If you haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Next Generation, good luck. Good luck finding it, and good luck sitting through it. If you can get through the whole thing, let us know.
Oh, it's on a bad streaming service somewhere. It's on like those ones you were mentioning, Cracked or Tubi or whatever.
Yeah, you might be able to find it. I'm gonna, you know what? Just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna Google it right now and see if I can find an actual streaming service that carries
Texas Chainsaw 2 is on Tubi because that's where I watched it for our episode on that. Plug for that episode.
Generation. Let's see. Is there anywhere I can watch it? Vudu for $2.
Yeah.
Amazon
that's
Prime.
That's too
much. Amazon Prime $2.99.
No.
Ah, shit. It got 16% Rotten Tomatoes. Not a 0. Surprising. 50% with Metacritic. says 60,
interesting.
60% of Google users liked this movie. Right on.
Yeah, but how many of that is like people actually watching the movie and people just going, oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
dude,
and just like doing the thumbs up just because they recognize the title.
Would you have guessed that movie only had a $600,000 budget?
Honestly, that seems expensive for that movie.
I'd be willing to bet $200,000 a piece went to McConaughey and Zellweger. Even though
they weren't famous at the time. They got paid nothing.
They weren't famous at that point, but my God, compared to everybody else in that film, they were.
No, they would not have gotten paid that much.
But then I don't know where they could have put that much money towards.
Well, there's a big like plane stunt at the end, right? Am I
Yeah.
remembering that right?
No, I'm pretty
sure.
A lot
of money went
right.
to the plane.
The box office, they made a good chunk of change, only $180,000. So.
Oh my God. Oh, that's hilarious.
My God.
But they pulled it pretty quick, right? Like they
almost
pulled it
immediately.
Yeah.
Almost immediately.
Oh, that's always fun.
Because it wasn't branded I can't remember what it was called originally. It wasn't The Next Generation. It had a different title. They pulled it from theaters, and then when they re-released it like straight to video, they renamed it The Next Generation. But it had an original title to it before they pulled it. And then they decided they have a collector's edition on sale on Amazon.
Okay.
It's a Blu-ray collector's 2-box set, man.
Oh man.
You want me to get that for you? It's bummer for you. You want to? It's got 2 different film cuts. Ooh.
There are different cuts of that movie?
There's a director's cut with an extra 9 minutes.
Oh, good. Oh man.
Dude.
9 more minutes of that already too long movie.
I'm not kidding with you. We need to do an episode because I swear to God, it says audio commentary with writer-director with the director's cut. We have to listen to this commentary.
Okay, I would be interested in hearing the commentary. Commentaries are always way more fun when the movie's bad.
I have got to hear what this lady was
Because you're
thinking.
either going to get like an explanation for what happened and you'll understand it more and be like, oh, okay, I get what happened here. Or the people who made it are delusional.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Do you know Howard the Duck?
Yes.
That 80s movie? The people that made that do not understand how bad of a movie they made. And it is hilarious to see the behind the scenes stuff where they legit think they made a good movie. And it's like, you guys are on something still decades later.
My God. Unfortunately, the Blu-ray was unavailable. So I'll have to see if I can find it. They just sold too many of them.
Too bad. Maybe there's a box set.
Everyone who bought them,
they have that on there.
Everyone who bought it was for sure buying it for the commentary, just like us going, why the fuck did they make that movie?
And horror fans are collectors, and it's like, oh man, I don't have the director's cut of that. Better see what that's about. And like doing it totally begrudgingly.
That's fair. That is definitely fair. Wow. Yeah, I gotta find the director's commentary for that. We will do an episode. We'll get some fans involved. If we get a Patreon going, dude, could you imagine 10 people sitting through that film? Holy God. Well, everybody, Sean, where can I find you? It'll all be linked down below, but what can I check out?
I have a YouTube channel, just youtube.com/Sean Blumenshine, where I review rock and roll kind of stuff, horror movies, all that good stuff. And then Instagram, same, just Instagram/Sean Blumenshine, where I just usually post Kiss or horror collectibles that I have.
He has a good review of The Dirt. I recommend people
Oh,
watching.
God.
See, this is where me and you are going to split. I enjoyed The Dirt.
Fuck
I-
that movie. I had to watch that again.
Ah,
I decided
man.
to review it, and then as soon as I sat down to watch it, I was like, fuck me. That was not a good decision.
Oh man. You can check my podcast out, Partial Artist Podcast, link down below. I got for the audio, I got some videos on my YouTube. It's all linked down. You can find it down there. But every other Wednesday, we got a new horror episode coming up. And let us know what your lists were, how you compare, how you rank, and what topics you want to see us cover next. With that being said, that's all I got. That's the episode for me. Sean, you got anything you want to add?
Nope, we're good.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you all in another episode.